What up, people? How y'all doing today? It's your boy, your favorite vibe builder, Major Dream Williams here. And I just wanted to get some thoughts out because as normally it goes, I set out to do things and then life happens and I haven't recorded much. I've been working, I just haven't recorded, which is really kind of stupid, really, when you think about it, because I'm on the computer a lot. All I have to do is press record and just go. Because I know this is like what a lot of people really want to see. Yeah, so a lot of people really want to see process, not necessarily what's finished, what's productized, what, a let me polish this and then show you. So people like to see people actually going through it, especially those of us who are building actively and not just trying to sell something. And much to kind of my chagrin, I guess, I should probably be selling something. I should. I really should. And what I decided to sell is knowledge. And not knowledge in the sense of, here, this is what I know, a little bit, but more so, here's how to help you extract what you know. Because remember, you are the wisdom, AI is the intelligence. Those things go together, right? And then it can create something that hopefully will impact your life or impact the people around you in your community. And if you're lucky, impact the world. So I look at it and I term it the ABCs of the major mindset. And it's the major mindset shift for most of you because when a lot of you hear, oh, this is what AI does and stuff, people immediately say, oh, well, that's not for me. I'm not looking into that. And I'm just like, wait, what? Makes no sense. Or, well, we don't control the system. And I'm like, look how many things you operate in a world that you don't control. What you're picking and choosing, even though this is a system that you can actually create and own and run. You don't necessarily have to use OpenAI. You don't necessarily have to use, Google. You don't necessarily have to use Amazon. You don't have to use all of these marketed to you tools. There's tons of them around. And that's mostly how I operate. Yes, I do have an OpenAI subscription. Yes, I do have an Anthropic subscription. Yes, I do have a Higgsfield um, subscription. Yes, I do have a Gemini account and all the things that Google has in its ecosystem. Yes. How do I use them? I use them in a way where I get to learn from them. And then I find open source, off brand, and smaller tools that either I can utilize, learn from, and create myself. So that way I can use it. And ultimately, what I have in my toolbox is my company, Hanzo, right? Hanzo, AMA, and Lux. I call it Hamal, right? Like Jamal, Hamal, you know. But what that is, it's a stack that my partner, Zach, and I have been building over 15, 16 years now. Well, yeah, since 2016. Oh, okay. So 10 years. 10 years, 10, 11 years now. So, but I say all of this because I came under well, first, before I jump into it, let me give you a little backstory. Let me give you a little context. So, growing up in the South Bronx, coming from 80s era crack, growing up in hip hop, a big fan of Jay-Z. Shout out to Jay-Z celebrating his 30-year anniversary to one of the more important albums in my life called Reasonable Doubt. Then 25 years of another very important album in my life called The Blueprint. These are type of things that have motivated me in life, not just in the hustler's mindset, but the path of ownership. I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I always wanted to understand money. I always wanted to have money, but I didn't necessarily have the discipline to, once I had it, to keep it, to grow it. So there's been a lot of up and down roller coasters. But the one thing that I've always kept is an open mind. The one thing that I've always kept is a nimble mind. Most of you do not have that. Why? Because you've taken the traditional path, which leads to debt, whether it be from school, whether it be from homes, whether it be gaining the 9 to 5, whether it be married, baby mama, divorce, child support, all of those things that kind of keep you trapped, I did not have to deal with. That's why I'm a bachelor. I have a 29-year-old daughter. Her mother is amazing. Never had any baby mama drama, but I didn't raise my kids. So that gave me a whole bunch of freedom. But what I needed to make sure that I did with that freedom was figure out a different way for my family, for my path. So when I came back, at least that sacrifice that was taken on by others wasn't for nothing. And that path and journey led me into technology. In 2010, I first learned about Bitcoin. In 2012, I got my first Bitcoin. In 2014, I started a business in Dubai, UAE. It was a juice company called Wild in the Moon. I was a small partner in it, and we built a bunch of locations from Dubai and Abu Dhabi, Paris, Amsterdam, and the brand is still growing. It was a kind of hybrid between health, wellness, bougie Frenchoisie, and fashion. Some things that I enjoyed, I benefited from, but it wasn't necessarily me inherently. I needed something a little bit more lifestyle, fitness, Caribbean. So after 2 years, I had another offer from an investor, a big family in the UAE, to start another juice company. So I said, you know what? Let me go to Bali, get a bit of inspiration. I come to Bali, I meet a woman that changes my life, sort of like my eat, love, pray moment. It wasn't my lover, but her guidance, tutelage, and her vision of who I was way bigger than I saw myself. But I left learning how to build bamboo homes in a saram, malas, and eating ormus, and waiting for Source to tell me what to do next. So I leave Bali, end up leaving Dubai in a week, headed back to the States, and my mother is sick, so it detours me to New York. After she passes, I end up in Puerto Rico after Hurricane Maria. Land right in the midst of all of these millionaire, billionaire, crypto OGs, gold OGs, you name it, they're all there. Why? Puerto Rico is a tax haven. So all of these people that I would never have access to in the real world, I now have them on an island, and I stick out because I wasn't there for the reasons that they were there. So I didn't have those kind of, setbacks or things that held me back. I was able to just be the cool dude. I held the vibe. I held events, always had girls around, cooked food, danced, made drinks, laughed, was just the guy that everybody kind of wanted around. And I didn't ask for anything. All of this kind of goes back to the hustler's mentality. Like, I'm not asking for handouts. You don't got to pay me. Just give me opportunity and never tell me to leave a room. Now, with that being said, leads me to live in a monastery, in a Mason, in a Masonic lodge for a good part of 3 years. And within that, the countless conversations and people that I met just really changed my life. One of those conversations and meetings was with my now partner, Zach Kelly. Zach Kelly, genius. He's not even just a coder, an engineer. He is one of the elite. Elite. What connected us? Love of herb, love of weed, love of hip hop, love of women. And he's a dude from Kansas, middle America, Kansas, but we just vibe. And I had a nice house. So brought the crew in, held a hacker house, 4 months with it building. We start to build. Logan Paul calls my team, offers them $1 million to build a project, of which he didn't pay us. It turns out to be a scam. We get ran up in all of that, but my team leaves me to go build, and then they ended up leaving. I end up sitting there twiddling my fingers with a bunch of half-done projects, and it forces me to learn how to code. Take a little quarter pill of Adderall, 14 hours later, I build my first smart contract. Functional working smart contract. Now I can make money. I can make crypto at this point because, again, I have to meditate, talk to source, understand, is this my path? How should I go about this? It was never that. It was never about making money. It was about impact. How can I help the Caribbean? How can I help my diaspora that I'm a member of? 30 million people from the Caribbean are in the US, in the Caribbean, the UK, and around the world. How can I do something to impact them? Because as a Jamaican kid and who has traveled the globe, I'm on my 5th passport, traveled the globe, I have seen how Jamaican culture has impacted the world. And I always say, so if my accent can make you feel aware, bring smiles and all of that to how come people can charge you to go sit on a couch and feel good for some, but my accent can bring smiles and all types of things for you? You can't pay me for that, right? Culture, you can feel it, but nobody knows how to fully monetize it until it was something called blockchain. So back at that point, I wanted to do something called let me tokenize, or what I say, mint the culture. Minting is what you do. You mint things to a blockchain. That is sort of provenance. It starts to say, all right, it lives digitally. Mint culture. At this point, it was ideally my concept. Didn't really know how to do it. What does that mean, mint culture? How can I make Jamaican culture into an NFT or put it on chain? Ever since then, so many things have now developed that makes that way more of a palpable, way more of a process that can happen. IP, intellectual property, that's something very important. So, with that being said, I start off my journey. I end up leaving Puerto Rico in 2023, right? Because I became CEO of Hanzo. So now I'm in San Francisco with my team because since then we connected again. And I'm in San Francisco doing the whole walking around SF, pitching, getting some good traction. And then boom, my little brother calls me, tells me, bro, I got stage 4 cancer. So I have to drop everything, step down, and just focus on my baby brother. About a year or so later, he passes. I'm in Australia, which is where he lives. And I'm like, okay, what do I do now? Well, let me pick back up. Leave Australia, go to Vietnam, and lose my phone in Vietnam. So those of you who know, you lose your phone overseas, you're just totally lost. End up, get in touch with Zach. Zach sends me a phone right away. So I'm now back in the mix, and I'm just like, all of this large language models, started to run. We were using Anthropic early. We did Anthropic hackathons. OpenAI. I've been using OpenAI and ChatGPT since end of November when it launched. So I just dove in, and I just started to rock and roll. And Zach was always an inspiration. Never thought I could ever do anything on his level because he's been doing this since he was 5. But what it did get me to fall more in love with was the open source community. The fact that there's all of this working code out there that makes sense. So as somebody that's an idea guy and a relationship guy, it made sense because I could vibe code something in a way where my backend, Hanzo and Zach, if it was big enough, they could always come in and support and finish and build out the rest. So I was pretty much responsible for the first 30 to 70% of anything. Fast forward now. Now I'm sitting back in Bali. I look at my repo. I got 261 repositories, right? Some make sense, some not. Some are half done, some don't. It don't even have a README. But of that, 100 good ones. Okay, and I was like, if I got that, I wonder how much does Zach have. So I look at Zach. Zach has 561, and his repositories are different than mine. All of his stuff are like working things. So I say, all right, cool. Now, because I believe in awareness, context, and belief, the awareness that I needed to have was that in this world, as much as you think big, you have to also have the smaller things. I call them the rabbits. You have the rabbits, you have the elephants, and you have the whales. You need the rabbits to stay fed. Every once in a while, the elephants will come along and you feel good. But when you get those whales, they change your organizational life. So I said, let me look at a couple of things. What type of code do I have that constitutes as rabbits, elephants, and whales that I could technically go after? I had recently been contacted by some folks out in Qatar. They were looking to incubate some tech projects. So I'm like, and they're giving away a bunch of money for it. I'm like, well, that'd be cool. They don't want any equity. They just want to get money. Interesting. I'd love to, go out to Qatar. I like the Middle East. I have friends out there, and let me look into it. So over the time, the Hanzo AMA Lux combination, I created a mob called Hamo. So it goes back to Hamo. So I look at Zach's repos and I scan it, I go through it, and I look at the top 12 kind of projects that fall. And then I look at my repos, because anything that I build, I always build with Hanzo and Lux in mind, but also wanting to build autonomously on my own. So now I look at mine, and then I kind of combine them and see between what can we do? And lo and behold, I have some really big and amazing projects that fall into the rabbits. Anything that I can sell from 10,000 to 75,000. You know, the elephants, anything from 100,000 to 750. You know, I don't necessarily need Zach in that. I can probably use Zach, you know, in maybe the last 20% of it, 30% of it. And then we have the whales, things that anywhere from a million to, you know, 25 million. All right. And those definitely need Zach. So I have my tiers, my 3 tiers that I can go after. And I'm just like, all of this just building. And this is the problem when you're like a smart person, when you have high intellect and high IQ, you just like to build because you realize there's not just so many problems in the world, but the tech and the tools keep getting better. Because once you build, it's outdated. But if you build in a recursive way, then your stack keeps getting smarter, and builds on top of itself. So that's the way we choose to build. And that's what I looked at today as somebody that loves systems, but sometimes when you keep going on in the systems and me, are telling people about the awareness that you need to have, and then you say, hold up, if I'm talking about awareness, let me be aware of what the context is for my actual system, because everything that I'm building, I'm building in the mindset of I know what we're building. Meanwhile, Zach could be lost off in the woods, phone off, and just coding. The only way you'll see Zach is alive is by looking at his repo and just seeing what he's editing, uploading, and whatnot. And I'm just like, this guy. But it's just one of those random and wild things that I keep calling, you know, how does a kid from the block end up in tech, in this space? And a lot of it is really about relationships, not trying to be something that I'm not, but also realizing what the tech space doesn't have. And like what Hove is, you know, at the end of the day, we real niggas. And there's not real niggas in tech like that. And when I say real niggas, I don't necessarily mean black dudes. What I mean is cats with the mindset from the block. Like dudes that are hustlers. Put me anywhere in God's green earth, I will triple my worth. That mentality. And it ain't really even about, oh, use this agent to do this, use this agent. Yes, I build agents. I do recursive loops. I friggin' use different type of models. I learn how to edit not just code but video, and I do all of these things. And I'm a Gemini, right? So we're just walking geniuses that are interested in everything. And I'm obsessed with this space, and not just with this space, but the ability to create your own freedom. That is really what this is about. And if you don't have the awareness or even the context of where you lie in all of this, there's no way you can believe that you can be free. No way. No way. No way. No matter how much money you have. The fact that I know that my system, the systems that I have are in tiers. I have 12, easily 12. Remember I said I got 100 repos and another 561. It's about almost 700 repos of code that are working apps and protocols and platforms and MCPs and APIs, like all of this stuff I got access to. And I'm like, yo, how the fuck? My mind is blown. You know, God is good. God is good. But what I'm here to tell you is that as long as you keep pushing, as long as you keep that hustler's mentality, that hustler's mindset, and you realize that the way that you see the world is the most important. Because if I don't see the world the way that I do, if I don't have the awareness to see what, not just what is going on, but how is it going on? Where do I fit? Am I willing and able to travel other places for opportunity? Am I able to hop on that I-95 and head down south, head to Virginia, head to Atlanta, head to Florida, go get that, Alabama, Arkansas, Louisiana, go get that, Maryland, get that, and come back, flip and go back out and get, am I ready to take that chance? And that's right there is the difference between me and you, is that I was willing to take that chance. I didn't need to know if I was going to succeed or not. I didn't go to Puerto Rico to go meet billionaires. I went there to help the island recover from a hurricane as a good Caribbean kid, as a good son of the Caribbean. That was my move, and that's what I was blessed with. Access. But most of you have access, but you don't have context. Most of you have access, but you don't have awareness. Most of you have access and just don't have belief in yourself. So how, if you don't have these things, how are you going to think AI is something that you can make billions of dollars in? We've launched 3 unicorn companies already just off of our tech alone. My friends, broke, sitting beside me, multimillionaire right now, in 2 years. He just said, fuck it, man, I'm gonna go after it. And he did. And I root him on. But everyone has their own path. But the beauty about it is to know that if the people around you are getting it and you haven't gotten it yet, keep pushing, because you are in that energy sphere. You need to have the awareness to know where you are standing. Rather than hitting the bullseye, just get on the dartboard. Because if you're on the dartboard, then you're getting that residual energy, and just build off of that. Don't be greedy. Just go for 100% of what is yours. And what you have is the way that you see the world. But if you're not curious, if you're not aware, if you don't have any context where this thing lies, where you lie in all of this, well, then guess what? How are you going to believe yourself? Like, I got things, I can launch things for governments, for multinational companies, agents, secure. I own the whole vertical. We built the whole vertical. So I don't have to lean on anybody. The only reason I do that is because, one, I like to see what the other people are doing. And you get inspired and you take what works and you build your own things. This right here is the biggest box of Legos that you can have. Trust me on this. If you have the awareness, if you have the context, and if you gain that belief, you, my friends, will build this place as big as you want. Little by little.